Welcome to the channel. And let's start the story. Reborn as a mecha engineer, I'll build the ultimate war machine. Chapter 4, The Broken Little Machine. Mira stared at the broken robot in silence. Pip rested across the Vale family's dining table. His remaining arm hung over one side. The lower half of his body was missing. A crushed section of metal exposed part of his internal frame, and several loose cables extended from the empty right shoulder. One optical sensor remained dark beneath a cracked protective lens. A faded industrial symbol covered the center of his chest. Darius stood beside him with grease still on his hands. Aren waited near the table. Lena leaned over Pip's damaged body with open fascination. Finally, Mira looked at Darius. "You brought home another machine." Darius pointed toward Aren. "He selected it." Mira turned toward her son. Aren stood very still. "You selected half a machine." "More than half. There are no legs. The important parts may still be inside. There is one arm. That can be repaired. The head is crushed. Only the outer casing." Mira looked back at Darius. "You encouraged this." "I attempted to explain the cost." "And?" He used the word unfinished. Mira closed her eyes. She understood immediately. Aren had used that word often during the past 2 years. Broken machines were common in Greyhaven. Discarded machines were everywhere. But unfinished machines affected him differently. To Aren, unfinished did not mean useless. It meant waiting. Mira opened her eyes and examined Pip again. "How much?" "Free." "That is worse." Darius frowned. "How is free worse?" "Free machines usually become expensive." "That is accurate," Aren admitted. Everyone looked at him. Aren added quickly, "But not always." Mira crossed her arms. "What exactly do you intend to do with it?" Aren approached the table. "Inspect it." "And after that?" "Find what still works." "And after that?" "Make a plan." "And after that?" Aren placed one hand on Pip's damaged chest. "Repair him." Mira stared at her son's determined expression. Then at the mechanical remains occupying the table where the family normally ate. "Where will we have dinner?" Darius looked around the small home. "The floor?" Mira's gaze moved toward him. Darius corrected himself. "We will build a work support. You will build it outside. Dust will enter the processor." "You just said the processor might be destroyed." "Might." Aren looked between his parents. "Can we inspect him first?" Mira sighed. 1 hour. Aren smiled. "Under supervision." His smile weakened slightly. "No power connection," she continued. Aren's smile disappeared. "How do we test him?" "You do not. We need to know what works. You may inspect the parts. Your father may perform basic continuity tests. No power cell enters that machine until we know it will not explode." Pip's damaged chest produced a faint metallic tap. Everyone froze. Tap. The remaining hand moved by several millimeters. Then stopped. Lena stepped backward. He heard Mama say explode. "It is probably residual charge," Darius said. "Probably?" Mira asked. Darius looked toward Aren. Aren examined the robot's hand. The movement had followed no obvious pattern. The fingers had not closed. The wrist had simply twitched as if the actuator received a weak command. "Reserve capacitor," Aren said. Darius nodded. "Likely. Then the processor may still be active." "Possibly." Mira looked from one engineer to the other. 1 hour. Darius retrieved his tools. Aren climbed onto his wooden crate. The inspection began. The first task was cleaning. Greyhaven dust had entered every opening in Pip's body. Fine metallic particles covered the processor housing. Oil residue had hardened around the remaining shoulder joint. The damaged chest contained fragments from at least 3 other machines. Darius removed the outer casing while Aren organized the screws. Lena helped by holding a lamp. Mira remained nearby, pretending to focus on her own circuit repairs. In reality, she watched every movement. Aren held his safe precision driver. Most of Pip's fasteners were too large for it. One small access panel near the left shoulder used screws he could manage. He placed the driver into the first slot. The handle rotated. The torque limiter slipped immediately. Aren frowned. "It stuck." "Corroded," Darius said. "I can apply more force." "No. The limiter is too low." "The limiter is exactly where I set it." Aren looked at him. Darius loosened the screw with a larger tool, then allowed Aren to remove it. "That is not doing the repair," Aren complained. "That is doing the safe part of the repair." I understand how screws work. Understanding does not make your wrist stronger. Aren removed the loosened screw and placed it in the correct container. Temporary limitation. Your body will remain 4 years old for the rest of today. That is unfortunate. Lena laughed. I am 9. I can use bigger tools. You nearly cut through the table last month. The table survived. It has a hole. It is a small hole. Mira spoke without looking up. No one is receiving larger tools. The discussion ended. After 20 minutes, Pip's damaged torso lay open. Darius activated a handheld scanner. A basic internal diagram appeared. Several sections failed to respond. Aren studied the exposed systems instead. The processor sat near the center of the chest rather than inside the head. That was sensible for an industrial robot. A damaged head could be replaced without losing the machine's primary control system. The remaining optical sensor connected through a narrow communication line. The left shoulder actuator retained its motor, though the joint casing was bent. A compact power cell rested behind the lower chest plate. Its outer housing had cracked. No liquid had escaped, but one terminal was burned. Do not touch that, Darius warned. I know. Aren leaned closer without crossing the marked safe line on the table. The power cell resembled no common battery from Earth. It contained a layered energy material sealed inside a ceramic metal shell. Small industrial robots in Astria could operate for days using cells smaller than Aren's hand. The technology was impressive. The condition was not. Cell is unusable, Darius said. Maybe the internal layers survived. Maybe. Can we open it? No. Can you scan it? Not safely while it remains connected. Then disconnect it. Darius studied the damaged terminal. It may discharge through the casing if moved. Aren looked toward the cracked shell. The fracture had formed near the positive contact. The outer frame remained intact, but the insulating layer beneath might be damaged. Clamp the ground side first, he said. Darius looked at him. Aren pointed. If the casing carries charge, give it a controlled path before disconnecting the terminal. Darius considered the suggestion. He attached a grounded clip to the undamaged side of the housing. The meter showed a weak leak. Mira immediately stood. There is current. Very little, Darius said. That is not the same as none. Aren watched the reading. The cracked insulation had allowed charge to reach the outer casing. Without grounding, touching it with a metal tool could have produced an arc. Darius disconnected the cell carefully. Once removed, Pip's chest became safer to inspect. Mira sat again. Her expression remained tense. Darius looked toward Aren. Good observation. Aren smiled slightly. Family work. His father smiled back. Family work. The processor responded to no normal diagnostic connector. Darius tried 3 standard Federation adapters. None fit. He tried an older industrial interface. The housing rejected that too. Aren examined the connection points. Most of Pip's visible electronics belonged to a common maintenance series. The motor control board carried a recognizable serial pattern. The sensor wiring followed industrial standards. But the processor casing did not. Its metal was darker, smoother. No manufacturer mark appeared on it. A circular structure surrounded the rear connection panel. Aren leaned closer. The geometry looked familiar. Not from Earth. From the faint blue symbols he had seen beneath Greyhaven. He had not consciously remembered them until now. 3 short pulses. 1 long. A strange pattern had followed him through dreams since his reincarnation. What is that? He asked. Darius looked toward the circular structure. Probably an adapter ring. For what? No idea. Was it original to this robot? Darius examined the mounting points. The processor had been installed long before the surrounding components were damaged. But the casing did not match the rest of Pip's body. Maybe not. Aren's attention sharpened. Someone had replaced Pip's original processor. Or built the entire robot around a much older core. Darius checked the serial marks inside the chest. Series 4 body. Processor? No record. Could it be military? Military components usually advertise their importance with seals, warnings, and enough paperwork to crush a table. Aren looked toward the dark housing. Architect. The word changed the room. Mira stopped working. Lena lowered the lamp. Darius did not answer immediately. Architect technology was rare. Not rare in the way expensive tools were rare. Rare in the way legends were rare. Most modern steel frame systems descended from architect designs, but confirmed original components belonged to governments, corporations, noble families, or research institutions. A broken household robot should not contain one. Darius activated the scanner again. The processor casing returned no material identification. That does not prove anything, he said. It also does not disprove it. That is true of nearly everything. Aren studied the circular ring. Fine symbols had been etched around its edge. Dust concealed most of them. Clean it. Darius used a soft brush. The markings became clearer. Small geometric shapes formed a pattern around the ring. Mira approached. I have seen those before. Where? Darius asked. She thought. Old circuit boards from the western yards. Not many. Traders call them dead script components. Because no one can read them? Because most refuse every modern connection. Aren looked at Pip. Then why was one inside a maintenance robot? No one knew. Pip's remaining finger twitched. Tap. Aren placed his hand near it. The finger moved again. Tap. Not random. The interval matched the faint pattern in his memory. 3 short movements. Pause. 1 longer press against the table. Tap. 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 Aren's heart began beating faster. Darius noticed. What? That pattern. What about it? I've heard it before. Where? Aren looked toward the floor. He could not explain. Not fully. Under the house. Myra's face changed. When? Sometimes at night. Why did you never tell us? I thought it was pipes. Darius looked at the metal floor beneath them. The Vale home stood above old utility lines. Pumps, waste conduits, and buried power cables produced sounds constantly. A rhythmic signal could easily disappear among them. But Pip's damaged hand had repeated the same pattern. Aren touched the mechanical fingers. They became still. The 1-hour inspection ended without anyone mentioning the time. Darius built a temporary support frame from an old chair and 2 structural bars. Pip was moved from the dining table to the new workstation near the wall. Mira allowed it only after Darius promised the frame could not fall. Aren tested it by pushing one side. The structure shifted. Mira looked at Darius. He added a 3rd support. Aren tested it again. Stable. Pip remained there for the next 3 days. The Vale family created an inventory. Aren drew a simplified diagram on packaging paper. Functional or potentially functional. Main processor, unknown condition. Left arm actuator, motor intact. Remaining hand, partial movement. Optical sensor, damaged but responsive to direct input. Internal communication line, partial continuity. Torso frame, reparable. Central balance sensor, uncertain. Missing or unusable. Right arm. Both lower legs. External power cell. Het casing. Speaker. Primary motor control board. Several internal cables. Most exterior armor. Lena examined the list. He is more missing than working. Not true, Aren said. He has 1 arm. The processor matters more. We don't know if it works. It sent commands to the hand. Maybe the hand moved by itself. Hands do not make decisions. Lena lifted her own hand. This one does. That is connected to your brain. Maybe Pip's hand has a tiny brain. Aren stared at her. No. You don't know. I know enough. Lena drew a face beside Pip's diagram. Aren erased it. She drew another. Mira eventually gave her a separate sheet of paper. Darius calculated the cost of proper repairs. The result was worse than expected. A compatible industrial power cell would consume nearly 2 months of the Vale family's disposable income. Replacement leg assemblies cost more. Even damaged ones. A motor control board suitable for a Series 4 maintenance robot rarely entered public salvage. The right arm assembly was the least urgent but still expensive. We cannot buy all of this, Mira said. Aren studied the list. We don't need original parts. Darius leaned back. That creates other problems. We can solve them. Aren looked toward him. His father tapped the drawing. Different motors require different control signals. Different leg lengths change balance. Power cells may use incompatible output ranges. The processor might refuse unknown components. Then we make adapters. For every system? Yes. Darius smiled faintly. You say that as if adapters create themselves. We create them. We. Aren lifted his safe engineering tool. Darius looked at the tiny driver. Your contribution will be important. Aren frowned. But physically limited. Aren frowned more deeply. Mira placed food on the table. You may begin with a realistic goal. What goal? Make one part work. Aren looked toward Pip's remaining hand. It had moved using residual power. The actuator might still function. The hand was already connected to the processor. If they could supply a small amount of controlled energy, they might test both systems at once. Left arm, he said. Darius nodded. That is realistic. Then sensor. Perhaps. Then voice. We do not have a speaker. Lena talks enough for 2 machines, Aren said. His sister threw a folded piece of paper at him. This time, it hit the helmet he had forgotten to remove. The first useful component came from Myra's electronics shelf. An old inspection lens had been removed from a damaged communications device. Its outer housing was cracked, but the internal sensor still produced a weak image. The resolution was poor. The color channels were uneven. It was not designed for a robot. Aren wanted it immediately. Mira held the component between 2 fingers. This belongs to a customer. Is it reparable? The customer replaced the entire device. So it is scrap. It remains useful for parts. For Pip. For paying work. Aren looked toward the damaged robot. Mira watched him. You cannot take every component from our workbench. I only need this one. You said that about the contact wire yesterday. That was also necessary. And the insulation strip? Necessary. The small relay? Very necessary. Mira opened a drawer and removed 3 other damaged sensors. Choose from these. Aren examined them. The first had a functional casing but a destroyed image processor. The second produced an image but required too much power. The third was an optical inspection lens used inside narrow machinery. Small. Low power. Blue tinted. Its field of view was limited, but it would fit inside Pip's damaged head. This one. Mira nodded. That one is yours. Free. It is family scrap. Aren smiled. Family work. Mira smiled back. Do not use that phrase every time you want something. The optical lens became Pip's first replacement component. Darius built a temporary mount from a communication bracket. Aren drew the required angle. The lens needed a downward tilt so Pip could see the ground directly in front of him. Lena wanted it placed at the center of the face. Robots should have symmetrical eyes. He only has one. Then put it in the middle. The old sensor port is on the left. Move it. That requires cutting the head frame. It would look better. Function first. Appearance matters. Later. Lena crossed her arms. Pip will remember who cared about him. Aren ignored her. Darius connected the lens through a temporary signal adapter. Without processor access they could not confirm that Pip understood the image. But the sensor produced data. That was progress. Aren wrote. Optical sensor. Installed, not calibrated. Lena added. Looks strange. Aren crossed it out. The hand test required a controlled power source. Pip's cracked original cell was too dangerous. Darius borrowed a laboratory supply from the repair station. It could limit both voltage and current. Mira allowed the test after removing every flammable object from the area. Aren stood behind a transparent safety panel. He disliked the distance. Darius connected the ground line first. Then the control terminal. Then the main supply. Aren watched the meter. Start low. I know. Lower than normal operating voltage. I know. If the processor draws too much. I know, Aren. Aren became silent. Darius increased the output. Nothing happened. 1%. 2. 3. The remaining hand stayed motionless. The optical lens remained dark. No draw from the processor, Darius said. Maybe the input path is damaged. Or the processor is dead. Aren rejected that possibility. He examined the wiring. The power input entered through a distribution board near the missing motor controller. That board had been damaged when Pip's lower body was torn away. Even if the processor survived, the energy might never reach it. Bypass the main board. Darius looked toward him. Direct power to an unknown processor? Through the lowest setting. We do not know its required voltage. The casing has multiple layers. That is not a specification. Aren studied the geometric markings around the processor port. 3 small contact points stood apart from the main connector. Perhaps one was diagnostic power. He pointed toward them. Test resistance. Darius did. The first point connected to the casing. Ground. The second connected to the processor interior through a high-resistance pathway. The third appeared isolated. Second could be standby power, Aren said. Could be communication. Low current test. Darius considered. Mira stood beside the emergency cutoff. Very low. He attached a fine probe to the second contact. The supply began at nearly zero. Aren watched the processor casing. Nothing. Darius increased the voltage gradually. At a fraction of the robot's expected operating level, the circular ring illuminated. A thin blue line appeared around the processor. Everyone stopped breathing. Pip's replacement optical lens flickered. The remaining hand tightened once. The supply meter showed a stable draw. Processor active, Aren whispered. Darius smiled. Then every light shut down. The processor refused additional power. The hand relaxed. The test had lasted less than 2 seconds. But it was enough. Pip was not dead. Aren spent the next morning studying the startup failure. Darius had recorded the test data. The processor accepted standby power. It attempted to activate the optical sensor and remaining actuator. Then it shut itself down. The energy supply had remained stable. No excessive current. No short circuit. The shutdown was deliberate. Missing systems, Aren said. Darius reviewed the data. Safety lock. The processor expects the motor control board. And legs. Maybe not legs. Maintenance robots may operate while mounted. The missing board is likely enough. Aren looked toward the open lower torso. Pip's original motor control unit had been torn away with the legs. Without it, the processor had no safe way to command the actuator. It shut down rather than sending uncontrolled signals. That means we need a controller next, Aren said. Darius nodded. A compatible one. Adaptable one. Those are expensive. Then we search. Mira looked toward the family supply shelves. We also need a power cell. Controller first, Aren said. We can test with the bench supply. You cannot keep borrowing that from the station, Darius replied. Why? Because Corvin will ask what I am repairing. Aren's excitement faded. The military repair station monitored its tools. If Darius continued borrowing specialized equipment, someone might become curious. A broken public maintenance robot was not illegal. But Pip's unknown processor might attract attention. They needed to remain invisible. Darius returned the laboratory supply that afternoon. From then on, the project depended on what the Vale family could obtain privately. The motor control board appeared in the weekly public auction. It sat inside a box of damaged industrial electronics. The board had once belonged to a warehouse loader. Its outer casing was too large for Pip. 2 motor channels were burned. 4 remained usable. Most importantly, the control architecture was configurable. It could accept different actuator types after calibration. Darius saw the value. So did 3 professional mechanics. The bidding began above the Vale family's budget. Aren stood beside his father at the edge of the crowd. He watched the price rise. Too much, Darius whispered. We need it. We also need food. We can repair boards for food. Not if this one consumes all our repair money. The board reached 18 credits. Then 20. One mechanic dropped out. Another continued. Aren studied the box. The auctioneer had described it as a 4-channel controller. He was wrong. The casing belonged to a 4-channel series, but the internal connector pattern showed 6 pathways. 2 were hidden beneath a replacement cover. The board had more capacity than the bidders realized. That explained the high original power rating. Aren tugged Darius's sleeve. 6 channels. His father looked down. What? Not 4. Darius examined the connector pattern. Understanding appeared. 2 channels might be burned. 4 still worked. But if the hidden pair remained intact, the board could control 6 outputs after repair. Enough for Pip's future legs and remaining arm. The bidding reached 22 credits. Darius raised his hand. 23. Aren stared at him. Mira had given them a maximum of 20. The other mechanic bid 24. Darius said 25. Aren felt both excitement and fear. Mira was going to kill them. The other bidder hesitated, then lowered his hand. Sold. Darius collected the box. Aren looked up. Mama said 20. I know. What will you tell her? That you misbehaved. Aren stared at him. Darius smiled. Family work. They walked home more slowly than usual. Myra's reaction was controlled. That was worse than shouting. She placed the controller on the table. 25 credits. It has 6 channels, Darius said. It was advertised with 4. 2 are hidden. Working? Unknown. Mira looked toward Aren. He tried not to appear involved. You told him? It was important. So is the electricity bill. The board can control Pip's future legs. Pip does not have future legs. Not yet. Mira took a slow breath. Darius placed 5 credits from his personal meal allowance on the table. I'll cover the difference. You already skip lunch. Only sometimes. Most days. Aren looked toward his father. He had not known. Darius smiled as though it did not matter. Mattered. Aren touched the controller. We can repair it and sell other boards. Mira looked at him. How? Use this one to test motors. Then we can identify good parts from scrap. Darius considered the idea. A functioning configurable controller could become a diagnostic tool. They would use it for Pip, but it might also help Mira and Darius evaluate components more accurately. The purchase was still dangerous, but not purely selfish. Myra's expression softened slightly. You will both repair enough paid work to replace the money. Darius nodded. Aren nodded too. And no more auctions this month. Aren opened his mouth. No. He closed it. The controller required extensive repair. One burn channel had damaged a nearby regulator. The configuration memory had corrupted data. The output connectors used an industrial standard that did not match Pip's actuator. Darius handled the soldering and structural work. Mira rebuilt the damaged regulator. Aren studied the signal paths. Lena organized wires by length and color. She claimed this made her chief cable officer. No one challenged the title. The board activated after 3 evenings. Its 4 known channels responded. The hidden 5th channel was functional. The 6th contained a short. Aren did not insist on repairing it immediately. 5 channels were enough. 1 for the left arm. 4 reserved for future legs. The configuration memory could be reset manually. But every modern terminal failed to communicate with it. Aren examined the board's maintenance contacts. The reset sequence was probably mechanical and electrical rather than software-based. Industrial systems needed emergency procedures when terminals were unavailable. He found 3 small conductive pads near the corner. Bridge 1st and 3rd during startup, he suggested. Darius looked at him. Why? The middle one is ground. The outer pads probably form a maintenance request. That is a dangerous assumption. Test resistance first. They did. The pattern supported his theory. Darius bridged the pads through a resistor and supplied low power. The board status light flashed twice. Then cleared. The corrupted configuration disappeared. Factory reset, Darius said. Aren smiled. They connected Pip's remaining shoulder actuator. The controller identified the motor as unknown. Aren entered basic limits manually through Myra's work terminal. Maximum current. Rotation range. Acceleration. Emergency stop. Darius connected the processor's standby port to the board. The system remained incomplete. But for the first time, Pip's processor and actuator shared a functional control pathway. They needed power. The replacement cell came from a toy. A mechanical lizard sat on a merchant's shelf near the school salvage lane. His body was cracked. Its tail was missing. But the small ion cell inside remained intact. Aren examined the label. The capacity was low. Far below Pip's original requirements. Still, it could support brief tests. How much? Darius asked. The merchant looked toward the broken toy. 8 credits. It is missing half its body. The cell works. 5. 7. 6. 7. Darius began to walk away. 6. The merchant called. Lena had come with them. She picked up the toy lizard before the merchant changed his mind. It is cute. It is a power source, Aren said. It can be both. We need the cell. We can repair the lizard too. With what battery? Lena stared down at it. Aren realized the problem. Her expression became mournful. We will remember its sacrifice, she said. It is a toy. His name is Claw. You named it 10 seconds ago. Claw will power Pip. The toy was carried home with unnecessary ceremony. Mira helped remove the cell safely. Lena placed the empty lizard body on a shelf. For remembrance. Aren did not argue. The ion cell's voltage was compatible with the motor controller, but its connector was not. Darius created an adapter. Mira added a fuse. Aren insisted on a current limiter. Darius agreed. Pip's improvised power system now consisted of a toy battery, a loader controller, household wiring, and one unknown ancient processor. It was not elegant. But every part had a clear role. That mattered. The first full activation test took place after midnight. Mira insisted Lena sleep in the next room. Lena pretended to agree, then watched through the curtain. Aren stood behind the safety panel. Pip rested inside the reinforced support frame. His replacement blue lens remained dark. The remaining hand lay open. Darius checked every connection. Power path. Clear, Mira answered. Fuse? Installed. Current limit? Aren checked the setting. Low. Emergency cutoff? Mira held it. Darius looked toward Aren. Ready? Aren's heart pounded. Yes. Darius activated the cell. The motor controller illuminated. One green light. Then a second. Power reached the processor standby contact. The geometric ring around its casing glowed blue. Pip's optical lens flickered. Static appeared on Myra's monitor. Then an image formed. Blurred. Tilted. But real. The view showed the Vale family through Pip's new eye. Aren stared at himself on the screen. Small. Black-haired. Standing behind transparent armor with both hands pressed against it. Optical feed active, Mira whispered. The processor sent a command to the left arm controller. Pip's shoulder moved. Too quickly. The support frame shook. Reduce current, Aren said. Darius lowered the limit. The arm slowed. The elbow remained damaged, but the wrist responded. One finger closed. Then another. The hand tightened around empty air. Aren smiled. Pip. The blue lens turned toward him. Everyone became silent. The movement might have been random. A result of calibration. A coincidence. Aren stepped to the left. The lens followed. He stepped right. It followed again. Pip, move your hand. Nothing happened. Aren waited. Open. The fingers remained closed. The processor could see him. That did not mean it understood language. Aren approached the support frame. Mira began to object. The current is limited, he said. Stay outside the arm's reach. He stopped near Pip's shoulder. The blue lens focused on him. Aren lifted one hand. Like this. He opened his fingers. Pip's mechanical hand moved. Slowly. One finger released. Then another. The hand opened. Aren's eyes widened. Darius looked toward the control data. No direct command from the terminal. Then the processor copied him, Mira said. Aren raised his hand again. Pip attempted to imitate the movement. The damaged wrist rotated. The arm shifted against the frame. A warning light appeared. Then the system shut down. The blue lens went dark. The hand relaxed. Silence filled the room. Aren remained beside the machine. Why did it stop? Darius checked the readings. Power dropped below minimum. The cell? Too small. Can we restart? Not tonight. Aren looked disappointed. Then he remembered what had happened. Pip had seen him. Followed him. Copied him. The processor was not merely active. It could still interpret visual movement. That was more than enough. He works, Aren whispered. Part of him works, Darius corrected. Aren placed his hand against Pip's chest. That's where we start. Over the following week, Pip awakened for several minutes each day. The Vale family charged the small ion cell slowly. During each test, Aren taught him simple movements. Open hand. Close hand. Turn sensor. Stop. The processor did not understand spoken words consistently, but it associated repeated sounds with visual actions. Aren would say, open, demonstrate the movement, then wait. After 17 attempts, Pip opened his hand in response to the word alone. Lena insisted on teaching him, hello. Pip learned to move his fingers in an awkward wave. Mira taught him stop. He learned that one faster than anything else. Darius began mapping the processor's behavior. It adapts, he said. Maintenance robots need to learn tasks, Aren replied. Not like this. What is different? The processor does not appear to contain standard adaptive software. Maybe the unknown core handles it. Maybe. Aren looked toward the geometric ring. Pip's ancient processor remained a mystery. Modern systems could not access its memory. The robot learned through observation, but they could not see what it stored. That should have concerned Aren more than it did. Instead, he felt curious. The processor had survived being installed inside a cheap industrial body. It had survived the destruction of both legs and one arm. It had used its final reserve charge to tap against the scrap pile. It had waited. For what? For anyone? Or for Aren? They needed stronger power before continuing. The toy cell could not operate both the processor and a full set of future limbs. A proper industrial battery remained unaffordable. Aren began collecting damaged cells from the public salvage lanes. Most were unusable. Swollen housings. broken internal layers, leaking insulation. Darius rejected nearly all of them. Too dangerous. This one only has a damaged terminal. The internal reading is unstable. This one has intact layers. And a cracked pressure seal. This one? Burned. That can be repaired. No. Aren frowned. Darius remained firm. Energy systems are not where we gamble. Aren understood. He still disliked it. The solution came from old Nessa. She arrived carrying a rectangular battery wrapped in cloth. This powered my old mobility chair, she said. Mira looked toward the component. You replaced it last year. The chair stopped holding charge. Darius tested the cell. Its capacity had fallen to 40%. The output remained stable. For a maintenance robot operating at low power, it could work. What do you want for it? He asked. Old Nessa looked toward Aren. Make that little machine carry my water containers when it has legs. Aren nodded immediately. Agreement. Mira smiled. You are accepting work before the machine can stand. It creates motivation. The mobility chair battery became Pip's temporary primary cell. It was larger than the original compartment. Darius mounted it externally across Pip's back. The weight shifted his balance. Without legs, that did not matter yet. Later it would. Aren added the problem to his drawing. Back heavy, counterweight or battery relocation required. Lena added another line beneath it. Hat still required. Aren stopped allowing her near the diagram. The final discovery occurred during an attempt to improve the optical feed. Pip's replacement lens produced an image, but the processor received it through a temporary communications adapter. The signal contained noise. Mira suggested routing it through the processor's rear interface ring. Those contacts may include a direct sensor channel, she said. We don't know the pin arrangement, Darius replied. We can map low-voltage responses. Aren studied the circular structure. The ring contained 12 narrow contact points. 3 had already responded during standby activation. The others remained unknown. They disconnected Pip completely before opening the rear panel. Darius removed the protective cover. Behind it, the circular ring extended deeper than expected. It was not merely an adapter. It formed part of a sealed port inside the processor housing. Fine geometric lines spread from it through the dark casing. At the center rested a small black disc. No connector occupied it. No visible mechanism. Aren felt a strange pressure inside his head. The floor beneath the veil home seemed to vibrate. 3 short pulses. 1 long. Pip had no power. Yet the ring illuminated. A thin blue symbol appeared across the black disc. Mira stepped backward. Darius reached for the protective cover. Do not touch it, Aren said. His voice sounded sharper than intended. Everyone looked at him. Aren stared at the symbol. He had seen it before. Not clearly. A line beneath Greyhaven. A dream of something enormous standing in darkness. A voice without words. The port emitted 1 pulse. The metal floor answered. A faint blue line appeared between 2 plates beneath Pip's support frame. It lasted less than a second. Then vanished. Darius crouched and examined the floor. There is no power conduit there. Mira looked toward Pip. The processor is disconnected. Aren touched the edge of the hidden port. It was warm. Something activated it. From where? Lena asked from behind the curtain. Everyone turned. She had been listening again. Mira pointed toward the sleeping area. Back to bed. But now. Lena disappeared reluctantly. Darius scanned the floor. No active signal remained. No current. No heat. Nothing. He looked toward Aren. You said you heard the pattern under the house. Aren nodded. And Pip produced the same pattern. Yes. Now the floor responded. Aren looked down. Greyhaven had been built over layers of forgotten infrastructure. Industrial tunnels. Power lines. Collapsed factories. Ancient structures no modern map recorded. Something beneath them had recognized Pip's hidden interface. Or recognized Aren through it. Darius replaced the protective cover without touching the active ring. The light faded. We stop for tonight, he said. Aren did not argue. Mira disconnected every cable and removed Pip's battery. The little robot returned to silence. But the room no longer felt ordinary. The broken machine they had rescued was more than a discarded maintenance unit. His body was cheap industrial equipment. His limbs were missing. His power system was unusable. But at his center rested something ancient. Something that had been hidden deliberately. Aren looked toward Pip's dark blue lens. The robot had not simply survived in the scrapyard. He had been carrying a key. And somewhere beneath Greyhaven, a forgotten lock had begun to open. Long after the Vale family slept, the circular interface inside Pip activated again. No visible light escaped the closed panel. The signal traveled downward. Through the metal floor. Through inactive conduits beneath the residential district. Through forgotten lines that modern engineers believed were only structural supports. A buried relay received the transmission. Its surface cracked as internal power returned. Ancient symbols formed in the darkness. Affiliated interface unit detected. A second message appeared. Unit condition, critical. Repair activity, confirmed. The system traced the hands responsible. Darius Vale. Mira Vale. Lena Vale. Then Aren Vale. The final name remained highlighted. Data collected over 4 years assembled around it. Structural prediction. Technical perception. Adaptive design. System-level reasoning. Preservation behavior. A new record opened. Engineer Candidate 731. The buried intelligence processed the repaired robot's activation. The candidate had found an ancient interface unit. Recognized value where others saw waste. Restored function using incompatible scrap. The evaluation parameters shifted. Preliminary contact conditions approaching threshold. Far below Greyhaven, dormant machinery responded. A service line opened. A small maintenance arm unfolded from a wall. Several chambers received power for the first time in centuries. At the center of the buried facility, an incomplete mechanical giant remained suspended in darkness. Its armor was missing. Its reactor slept. One arm ended unfinished. A single standby sensor activated inside its chest. The light remained too weak to illuminate the machine. But it was enough to begin waiting. Above, Aren slept beside the broken little robot. He did not yet know what Pip truly was. He did not know what lay beneath Greyhaven. He only knew that the machine could be repaired. For Aren, that was always enough reason to begin. Our next episode, Chapter 5. Pip Awakens. Thank you for watching. Please do like, share and subscribe.